there's like what do we think this industry is going to want in 18 months? And that's how far out you got to think, it's like, because the flash to bang from design, getting materials, making something, and then getting it out to folks like you, it doesn't happen in 8 weeks.
If we only knew about 12 o'clock mounts, right?
Yeah, exactly. We were just talking about that. It's like, if we only knew. I think when we first made them, at the time we were making, I don't want to get into too big of numbers, but we were making a lot of offset stuff. We made what we thought was an okay number of the 12 o'clock stuff at first, and they were gone the first week.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, shit, well,
That
guess we should have quadrupled that up a little bit,
Yeah, whoops.
It's like, it's not like we have a big bunch of guys that give. Two.
So I think it's critically important, Chris.
Sir.
When we jumped on that Zoom call the other day, you were wearing your spectacles.
Yes.
I was like, oh my gosh, Chris looks like a freaking wizard over there. So Merry Christmas. I got you your own.
Oh my goodness.
sorcerer hat.
Look at that. You did say you were going to give me a present.
His beard was immaculate. And I was
It
like,
was-
oh my gosh, Chris is a wizard.
Looks really neat.
Gandalf the.
Yeah. I got to watch the jokes I make, man.
I don't know.
It's like,
You don't
oh,
have to
man.
keep it on. Just understand that I'm a fan of gag gifts.
That is
And Merry Christmas.
Thank you. That's awesome. I will actually wear that when I'm home on my computer. Just sit it right here on the floor. Well, thank you. That's good. I thought somebody was at the that gala this weekend, and I'm walking through, and somebody's like, "Hey, nice beard." I was all like, it was on point, and I thought he said nice beer, and I was just like, yeah, thanks, man. Like I was like, oh, okay.
Were you holding the beer?
Yeah, I was holding the beer.
Oh, okay.
I was actually drinking, and I was like, oh, that's a weird compliment.
Yeah,
But
but
then I was
like-
like, wait a second,
Beard.
beard. Okay, I got
It's a disappointment that it always comes from guys, though. Like I've had a couple mustaches for a while, and it's like there's never one. Lauren's not like, oh, it looks good. She's like, you look like you should not be around schools, freak. But you walk around somebody, hey, cool mustache. Walk another guy up and, I like your mustache. Like, all right, I'm shaving this thing. I don't like getting all these compliments from dudes when I go out. This is weird.
I don't know, man. My wife's Hispanic, and so
Yeah.
if another woman complimented me on my beard, that's a fight, dude.
Ooh,
I was
okay.
like, fucking
There you go.
done. She's like getting in a fight with somebody over it. I'm like, no, it's good. I'm glad dudes are complimenting my beard.
Man,
If
our
I'm good with
assembly
that.
manager got pretty angry at me the other day. And I don't think it was actual anger, but he was rocking a pretty spectacular mustache. I mean, nice and full, pointed.
He's pretty
waxing
dry.
It.
But
And I was like, that's a great mustache, Jeff. And he's like, why are you complimenting my mustache, dude? And I was like,
no.
because it looks great, man. I don't know what to tell you. Like, shouldn't we give each other compliments?
If I get a compliment from a lady, Lauren's like, she's just being nice.
Don't
There's
take it
there's absolutely nothing there. Like, calm it down.
Yeah,
She's
calm
just-
it down there, Skippy.
She's being nice. You creeped her out, so
Yeah.
she had to say something.
We good on all these? All right, cool. We're hot there too.
Cool. Everything rolling?
Yeah.
So, I guess welcome to the Big Tex Ordnance Podcast. I'm Ike. We have Chris. We have Christian and Jordan, or Mike, from Badger.
Oh, you outed me. There we go.
Oh, there. It's public now. Oh.
Does that need to be?
No, it's fine.
Do we need to cut that?
It's fine.
Speaking of which, I didn't do the proper safety briefing. Yeah. If you ever need anything, just find it at bigtexordnance.com or btogear.com.
What
Or
does Ricky Bobby say? If you don't shop at Big Tex Ordnance, then fuck you.
yeah, that's what he says.
I like it.
It's in the outtakes. If you watch the extended version, he actually says Big Tex Ordnance.
It's a great
Not
director's
I remember
cut.
that. Yeah,
I-
it's
I-
it's weird that was that in like 2005. Too.
Yeah, I know.
But he just knew.
He knew. He knew it was
He knew it
coming.
was coming. He knew it was coming. So, you guys are with Badger Ordnance.
That is correct. Oh yeah.
We make a few things, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, if we'll start like we normally do, and we do have some really good questions that we'll get
from the
to
group.
in the Facebook
Nice.
group. I've got a few questions on stuff, but just a little bit. If y'all want to jump into your backgrounds, just a little bit.
Mhm.
we'd appreciate it, so people know a little bit about you and how you got to Badger.
Yeah. I did some time in the Marines for a little bit, and my background in there was reconnaissance and sniper. That's what I did. So wasn't in for too long, just about 8 years, but used Badger Ordnance products. So that's my first exposure. Our sniper rifles had Badger Ordnance rings, rails, bottom metal. Our SR-25s had that stuff. So it's a name that we know. So when you're going through school, you got to learn every part of every weapon system and know it. And it's a good thing to know it too, because if you have an issue or if you're looking later on, you work at somewhere where you can develop. It's good to know those companies and kind of get familiar with it early on. So I started there, did that operationally for a few years, did Iraq and some Southeast Asia stuff in Afghanistan. Went from there to teaching for a while and worked at some other places. Worked at First Special Operations Training Group for a while. Worked there in the raids section, did that, which was great because it exposed me to stuff outside the sniper element. So some of the stuff that we still do and make now, it's like, all right, this is directly supported from that kind of stuff. And then taught on the reconnaissance and sniper side for a few years and did that. I met Badger Ordnance about the exact same time I was leaving there. So weird enough, just kind of kismet. I was working at the 2014 International Sniper Competition. And so the Army puts on a big sniper comp every year at Fort Benning. And they get everyone from SOF units to Marine units, Irish, British. It's 50 teams normally compete. And I was there helping out a couple of companies, U.S. Tactical Supply, if you ever heard of them, and then a Hog Saddle. Good friend of mine, Josh Stabler. Shout out to Hog Saddle. They make great tripods and great kit there. But helping them out, had a dinner with Remington Defense. They were the big dudes back then, and a good guy that was from there, from my community, and Marty Bordson, the owner of Badger Ordnance. And the company loves Marine snipers. That's his like bread and butter that he thinks we're cool. I don't know why, but he does. He thinks it's so neat. So he's like, oh, cool. So what'd you do? And talked him through that a little bit. And I had worked on like some development stuff when I was in and like putting some stuff together. And I was always a tinkerer big time. And so I was familiar with stuff. I didn't just get it and use it. And you come across that now and again. I'm sure you guys see dudes like, it's just what I had. I don't even know. That wasn't me. I knew everything about it and would tinker and had some unique stuff that maybe other people didn't have at the time. And so he's like, yeah, we're down in downtown Kansas City. You ought to, if you're ever in town, come by. And I was like, well, it's interesting because this week I moved to downtown Kansas City. That's where I live. And I was doing some other stuff, working for some other folks at the time, did some contracting stuff, and met a girl. So I was like, I was going to go move. And she was awesome. So still with her. And Badger just made sense. So started doing mill stuff there for a while. And then it's probably been about 4 years ago, took over as the director of operations there. So that's what I do now. So everything from designing and, what are we going to go down and chase and how do we make it and, what is it, and do that to like boring logistics stuff. Like it's not the cool stuff anymore. I don't live behind a gun or anything like that. It's a keyboard mostly, but do get to do some cool stuff and do get to still work with people I used to work with, which is probably the best part of the job. So that's how that kind of came about.
Had you really just like were moving to Kansas City anyway?
Yeah. So I'm from north of Kansas City, about an hour.
Okay.
That's where I grew up, in a small farm town. So I graduated early to join the Marines. I went to the Marines to be a scout sniper. I was like, I'm going to do this. And you can't. Like, I didn't know you couldn't just like go and do that.
Right.
You have to go through like a selection. It's like, all right. No one tells you that. It's just like, yeah, you can do that. No problem. And you
sign here.
You get in, you're like, what the fuck is this? This isn't cool. This sucks, So I found my way to that immediately. Figured out a way to get there immediately. But yeah, that's where I was from. That's all I knew, was small farm town, real small farming community, and then Marines. So I was like, well, ain't much going on back in Savannah, Missouri. I'll see what's going on in downtown KC. So I got a place down there, and I rode my bicycle to work. It was 5 minutes just downtown. So I was like,
That's awesome.
I'm right here. That's where you guys are here. Cool. So I rode my bike every day back and forth to work, and it's just made sense, so yeah.
That's like my wife was like lived 5 miles from here her whole life. It was meant to be, dude.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
Christian, what about you, dude?
It's not nearly as illustrious as Jordan over here. Honestly, sometimes when I think about like how I got into this industry and doing this kind of work, I chuckle a little bit because the biggest background that I have was just a quintessential American story. Like my grandfather taught me how to shoot. I still remember him drawing sight pictures in the dirt with a stick. So I just grew up around guns, and my grandfather had service in the Air Force. And so I just kind of grew up with understanding that was just kind of a part of life, was just military service. And so growing up, just really enjoyed guns. And then high school hits, I go to enlist because naturally, what else are you going to do when that's part of your life? And medical disqualification kept me out, and a family friend said, hey, you're not the dumbest kid I've ever met. You should try something different than just going to some state school. And he actually encouraged me to take a gap year, and I ended up finding a international microfinance company based out of Washington, D.C. Took a gap year, went and worked for them, lived in D.C. at 18, moved and spent a month in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, and then a week in Kinshasa in the DR Congo. Got to get really exposed to the world. And
malaria.
Right. Well, I mean, I got a yellow fever vaccination card, so that's neat, I guess. And so, honestly, the coolest part about working in microfinance was I never want to work in finance, ever. And that whole experience in working in multiple different departments as part of my internship, I learned that I needed to go to college to be able to pursue the things that I thought I wanted to pursue. So I ended up going back to Kansas City and went to a local private liberal arts college and studied international relations in the Department of Political Science. Did a crash course through 2016 and all of that. And what kind of has helped me the most in landing in this kind of sales, marketing, and BD space is when you're knocking doors and you're doing calls for a campaign, and I worked on 8 different ones in 2016, you learn how to talk to people, and you learn how to engage with people, figure out, okay, what do they enjoy? What do they like? What are good ways to get them to engage with you? And that kind of transformed me as a person, and that has shaped how I just do everything. And I care a lot about all of this space because, again, it's how I grew up. And so I spent some time actually in the insurance industry, which, again, sucks. And then at some point, I had written a paper in college and gotten connected with a guy in the industry. And he took me on as a contractor to do some contract sales. And through that's how we got connected, and ended up working for them for about 1.5 years and moved back to Kansas City and was able to come back to Badger and start up in sales marketing. So whereas Jordan is the brains of the products and everything, what I try to balance him out with is adding color and that marketing.
Yeah, I got no flash, fellas. There's none of that here with me. Closed doors I can concept, but I'm not good on the pizzazz. That's for sure. So he adds that for sure. Been a good fit.
So it's trying to figure out how to, growing up had this idea of companies as family. I grew up in that age where everyone stayed at a company for 30, 40 years, got their pension, retired. Yeah. And, everyone in my age group is going into that corporate jockeying thing. And it's, 2 years here, build the resume, make the connections jump, and you're doing all this and just chasing the paycheck. And for me, when I was in that gap year internship, the coolest experience I had, and I traveled to Africa, met some of the most amazing people. It was going through a rebrand for the company. And so it was a 3-month long process where they took this company that had been around for 30 years, was in 23 different countries, and they did a full rebrand. And I was like, wow, this is actually the coolest thing in the world, because you get to learn the whole history of a company and learn the story. How did they start? Why did they start? What's the mission? What's the vision? And actually learning, like, what is a mission-driven organization? And the thing that I used to joke around with buddies of mine when we worked at Gun Counter in college is, yeah, the gun industry really works off mission-driven organizations, because the pay isn't always rad. But you really enjoy what you do. The perks are there, and we all like the same things, so we get to save a little bit of coin when we're going and spending the money on it. And just that whole branding experience really spoke to me. And so now it's everything has a story, whether it's a company, whether it's a person, whether it's a product. Some of the stories that Jordan has told me about how we made some of these products is just incredibly cool.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as that. It's just cool,
Yeah.
right? It serves a purpose, and then how the idea came about was experiential based. And there's a lot of like honesty and like solidness in that I just really spoke to me. And so learning that transition from being really dedicated to a company in like a family sense, and now working into like more building a solid team where people are performers, but then there's healthy communication and all those cool things. Badger has been really good to me for that. And so anyway, that's how I got here.
Well, I'm glad to see you circle back.
Yeah.
That was when you left and moved to a different company that we worked together still there. That was a great little relationship, but I was really excited to find that you were coming back to this, because me and you talk a couple times a month. I mean, really. And then we talk about just the same amount of time, because we work pretty hand in hand when it comes to, hey, we need this, we need that. Hey, let's get this in clear. Let's do that. So it was good to have you.
Well, and I mean, the funniest part for me with all this, and then now sitting here, is like, if I can point to like a couple of dealers, like I've got a few in my pocket that like I have become really good friends with, and like Big Tex Ordnance has just always been great. I mean, the communication is great. You guys are always asking us questions, telling us what you need, and that's just, man, you find that this industry is not super huge, and Jordan's been in it way longer than I have, right? I'm only a few years in. But the relationships, that's the part that if you don't treat your relationships well, you'll get a reputation. You can still work in the industry, but you'll have less doors open to you.
For
and
sure.
So just trying to, keep those relationships good and healthy, that's awesome. You guys have always done that for us, and so it is nice to be back and working at that again.
Yeah, and I don't know if people realize too, but I hear this a lot in reference to y'all, but like we're friends. We're friendly with y'all. It's not just a company like, all right, how much dollars can we get from y'all? It's, first meeting Ike, it's been probably 2019, I think, is when we first started doing business with the guys, I think. And it's always been kind of with a wink and a nod and a handshake. It's like we trust this guy pretty early on, like just good folks. So I love when a company's like that. Not that we don't have other working relationships with something that's more formal, but it's the easiest customers to work with. It's just guys like that. And when you can do business that way, when someone can pick up a phone, just calling, like, hey, what's when you and me have talked on the phone informally quite a bit, and so you and me, I love that. I mean, that's the best customer ever to work with, and we'll always go further with that kind of relationship. So it's we're friends. We go hunting now and again. We get to do some stuff, and it's awesome. Great relationship.
And it's actually it's that nice spice of life kind of thing where like you guys ship us down a calendar. Bust that thing open, and then boom, smack on the front is Ian Mikowski crawling on the floor in a turkey costume. And Ian, I'm so upset that you're not here.
Yeah,
I'm heartbroken. We were texting about it.
He is down on the weather today. He's let yet another podcast that he's missed out on. I'll have to put that in his year-end review.
Yeah,
buddy.
But it's like you get to see your friends doing fun stuff like that, right? And like giving you a wizard hat for Christmas. Like, it's just
they
those
had
are
a
fun things,
they had a riot with the with the
the calendar.
The calendar.
Yeah.
Y'all were having a good time with that.
Super well executed. Yeah, super cool.
We like it. It wasn't as much nudity as I expected
Yeah.
in there, but it was good.
Ian did have a glamour shot in
Our
there.
our cameraman has standards.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a professional.
Yeah.
Good for you.
He does
About
have,
to be professional.
he has standards. So let's jump into it. We've got a bunch of good comments in the Facebook group, and we'll start off. Let's touch on the Clear Ano thing a little bit. So Clear Ano is a Big Tex Ordnance exclusive,
Yes, it is. Yep.
right? And kind of explain to people, and I do this on emails a lot, or we do this on email a lot. Like, well, why don't you have X in Clear Ano?
Because we need more than 6 people to buy it.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we come at you and we're like, hey, let's do an exclusive run of this in Clear Ammo, what's the logistics of that? What does that look like on your end?
Man. If you've paid attention to our company or like me in the past, like any comments I've made, you know that Ano's like just been, it's the hardest part for sure of our manufacturing process. And you can talk to a bunch of companies and they'll probably say the same thing, because you got the most money you can possibly have invested in your product.
It's the most expensive at that part in time.
It's not going to get any more expensive. And then it's like, okay, now here's a company that's not us. Here's this finished product. Don't fuck it up, please. And man, it do. Sometimes like it's a bummer. And when you're talking several thousand mounts sometimes. That's a crazy number. And it's like you might have, it's a spectrum, right? There's no like Clear's going to look this way one time, Clear's going to look this. I hear people all the time like, oh, that's not Clear, that's not tan. It's like, that's not how that works. You might get in a batch of say 300 mounts you send off for Clear. You might get 150 that are more gray, and then you have maybe 150 that are like almost tannish color. And then your caps might be, who knows, a spectrum of that. And it's just not the dialed in science that I think people think it is. If you want something to be exact every time, I'd say go talk to Tara and Abel at Roman Arms and have them Cerakote it. And that's what we tell our guys. And I like Cerakote. We don't do it. It's just another process because we have to ano anyways. You need it just for it's not just the color. It's for strength as well. And so, that's a risk when you're a company and you're looking at doing, X amount, hundreds of something. We're talking, tens and tens of thousands of dollars. It's a risk. And so you need to know like that customer really wants that obscure, weird gray. And that also they'll accept like it might be a little bit different every time. We did Clear Ano way back before like all this stuff was, kind of popular now. I think we did our first Clear Ano in 2003, 2004, somewhere along there for the EBR program. If you guys are familiar with the Mark 14, the old M14 and the Sage Eberly stock that started off at NSWC, and that had clear rings. That's what they want. They want it to be gray. And the chassis was the same way. That chassis was clear as well. Started off as a Navy program, and they wanted in that grayish clear. So we'd done it before, and we had experienced the same kind of woes, So doing different colors is tough because black will always sell.
Yep.
Yeah.
People like black. Guns are black. Tan's pretty established, I'd say, out there, and a lot of the military programs now, it's got to be tan. Like that's just how it is. That's what they want. So we do that, and they're not as demanding on color matching. It you can see a military program scope and amount, and there might be 50 Shades FD.
Yeah.
Everyone's seen a scar.
Yeah.
So, but we really strive to give the best possible product we can to our customers, and a retail customer might not like that not being the same. He buys a Clear Ano mount in 2018, he likes it, and then buys another one in 2020. He's like, hey, these are different. It's like,
Yeah. It's going to be.
It's tough. So
You can buy one out of the same batch and it's going to be different, like you said.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you don't want to like try to get people prepay on anything. We don't play that kind of game.
Yeah.
So it's a risk. So why don't we do green or Purple, yeah.
Looking at you, Brandon
Yeah.
Smedley.
Yeah, that ain't in the cards.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, the Marty Bordson, our owner, he'd probably strike me down if I said let's do purple. So I actually like it. I think it looks cool on tools. That's where I think that wild Dano should stay. But yeah, it's just tough. It's it's not as popular. That's just frankly it. And green's a whole different. Green's tougher than clear. It's a lot harder than clear. So just tough.
We're going to be doing some multicam dead levels.
Oh, nice.
No, we not multicam. It'll be something different. Yeah, we did multicam anodized dead levels, and that's another. We did a small run.
What we're going to do?
Yeah, you can.
Frog skin.
Yeah, so we got some
cool.
frog skin, old Marine Corps camo pattern. We'll have some dead levels, probably February is what
Oh, nice.
I'll think. So those will be cool. Super limited run, but that's where like you can do that application a little bit better. Is like a flat tool.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't have all this different surfaces. We did some multicam ano slicks, if you guys are familiar with our spotting scope integrator, years ago for someone wanted multicam anodized slicks, and it was a bear. I mean, that's I think a slick has like 9 pieces. It's like all those pieces, and you can imagine what that costs.
Yeah.
To do. We won't do that again. Like they come in 2 colors, tan or black.
Yeah.
That's what you get.
Yeah. And we've had some, we have a really good customer service department here. And I think that's one of the things that when I first came on, when I was doing that, you're just like, hey, if they can, if it's a color issue, just like, and we have another one, like we can send them another one, but it might not be the color that they want.
Yep.
And so like we've sent some stuff out, and it's usually FDE stuff, and people get it and they're like, oh, we don't like it, it's too dark, or we don't like it, it's too light, right? It's like you've got 3 options here. This is like, this is a light one, you want a darker one, we'll try to find you a darker one, whatever. And then we've had some stuff come back and you're like, man, how did you not like this? This is the beautifulest, darkest
I think I've
shade
kept one before.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like, oh man, this is gorgeous. It's like a really dark chocolate brownish kind of thing. I was like, oh, I'm keeping this.
Yeah.
I think there's a charging handle.
Yeah. We had I think a 193 come through one time that I definitely kept on.
Well,
So it was dark.
and that's the thing is like, it stinks too, because you want the best customer experience. I want our customers to get perfection from us, but on the color stuff, if that's demanded every time, then it gets back to like, okay, well now we're only going to do black.
Yeah.
Because at a certain point you just can't, you're pumping out 10,000 mounts a year or whatever. It's like you can't just be like, all right, like every third one, someone's like, hey, can I swap it?
Yeah.
It's not logistically possible.
Yeah.
So that's why you see a lot of companies don't even mess with it. I mean, tan ano is out there for sure. There's more people doing it now than ever, but I say buy the bulk, buy it far. Most people just do black, or they do Cerakote, because you can hold a pretty good standard with Cerakote.
Oh, yeah.
I understand people being like, hey, this isn't right on that, but that's way easier to match something.
Yeah.
And there's other issues that can come with that too,
Oh yeah.
So-
You can mess up your specs on your real quick on a Cerakote.
Even like you guys remember the old Colt M45s Marine Corps got. I was there when we got those, and I was working at a cadre at the time. We got them, and they look beautiful. They're tan Cerakote, and it was like a month later, ours just looked terrible. They look so bad, it was chipped off everywhere, and it's like, oh, you're gonna get that when you get hard use. You might not get that with ano.
Yeah.
Just how it is.
So next question here, since that answered a whole bunch of questions there were about ano. The next one, Rob asked, when are those new charging handles with the shorter pull tabs coming to the market, as well as the 762 charging handles coming back? ?
Yeah, Rob, that's a good question, and people should be holding our feet to the fire, because I think I teased some pictures of some different versions of ones. Probably, man, it's been a minute.
I think it was almost exactly a year.
Yeah, probably, yeah. And I probably said like next week or something like that. I don't know what I did, but man, that picture got me in a lot of trouble with people, because people are still commenting on that picture every couple of weeks. Someone will be like, "Hey, Mike, what's the deal?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I don't know." So the one you saw in the pictures is not the design ultimately I decided to go with. We changed up a little bit, and we hemmed and hawed on forged versus billet. So those that are familiar with their G3 charging handle, it's a forged charging handle. It's made from a forging, just like your receivers, and that's an inherently stronger product, and we like that. It's also inherently more expensive and kind of harder to do. If we just cut it out of billet, that's pretty easy. And there's nothing wrong, by the way, with doing a charging handle out of billet. I think it's still a good product. And you still make a really good charging handle billet. So nothing against that. If you like your X brand that's billet, no problem. But it was, when we were talking about doing the new one, it was a compromise. Every time it's like, well, this is easier. And we just had trouble finding forges, in the last, year. So it's tough finding a forge that's like, hey, let's make some charging handles for you. Comparatively low volume compared to, golf club heads, something like that. Like one of the places we went to, they spit out, I don't even know, tens of thousands of different manufacturers' golf clubs a year. For each one. It's like, oh crap. And then our other guys did the Fox Racing shocks.
Oh.
And they were busy with that. So we finally got a forge, and we said, this is what we need to do, because it's compromise if we make it out billet. And it's just not going to be as good as what we had. So we got a forge and that we like, and we are making those right now. For real this time. Like we're actually doing it. Like it's not like the soon teen, like they are coming. 762. And that was another thing. It's like, well, do we do 762 again? Because it's a forging. So you got to think, if you do 556, you get a forging that's this long. If you do 762, you do a forging this long. But every 556 charging handle that you make, you're cutting off that much. Think of the expense on that. It's like, it's cheaper if you just don't do a 762 charging handle, frankly. Yeah. It's cheaper and it's easier. And so, easier. We didn't do that. We're like, all right, let's do it, because people want to put these in SR25s, they want to use them. So, 762, we got that coming. 556, we got that coming. And MCX, we got that coming. And I would like to say Q2. That's for real this time, fellas. And if you can, get on the groups and make fun of me if we don't miss that personally, because I'm the only one saying it. But yeah, we're making them right now. It's happening. So
black FDE.
Black and FDE.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that's all we did some clear ones actually.
Yeah. That's
right. Some Hodge Defense ones. I forgot about that. But yeah, black and FDE. That's all we're looking at. In all three versions though. So there won't, if you got a SR25 that's tan and you really want a tan charging handle, we'll have one.
Nice.
You want to do the next one, or you want?
Let me see here. Let's see if I can find one. 2013 actions, 2013 actions. Ever making a comeback?
Nope. No. They're not. The 2013's, it's a stout action. It's 2013. That was when that came out. Here we are 10 years later. If we were going to do an action again, it's going to be something different. I don't want to just turn the button on something that we already turned off once.
Yeah.
And they were great actions. Don't get me wrong. I love mine. I still love seeing them out there, but it's a unique footprint, and there are so many chassis and stocks out there now that are just cut for Remington 700, and so we would do a service where we would take any chassis or stock that was cut for Remington 700. We would cut it for 2013, and it's an expensive process. You get your $1,400 chassis and send it to us, and we're like, all right, let's do $200 a milling work to make your action work, and we never moved a phenomenal amount of them, to be frank. So we put the brakes on that to focus on other products, and then funny enough, now is when we get the most chatter about it. That and our little guns that we did. It's like when we were actually selling them, they would trickle, and now it's people beat us up all the time for them.
It's the same.
It's like, wow, what do you do?
Yeah.
You know?
It's that with everything. I got a question that just popped in my head, and you can not answer it if you can't answer it or whatever. What all? Because I ask everybody that's a manufacturer that comes in here pretty much the same question. What all do you all? I mean, if it says Badger Ordnance on it, is it made at Badger?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So yeah, we have a production facility in South Dakota. It's all everything. If it's aluminum or steel or titanium, it's made up there. Dale and Ellen Mack, there are guys that run that up there, great folks. And everything but our polymer stuff, which we only have, I think now one polymer product. It's Kestrel mount. We don't make that. You know, we don't know a dang thing about polymer stuff at all. But yeah, everything is us. I'm trying to think what wasn't. I think we had like some gauges and some small tools at one point in time, but anymore, if it's got our name on it, it's from us at South Dakota, and that's where it comes from.
Nice.
Cool.
Yep.
Cool. That was my question that popped in my head there.
Let's see here. Eric is saying, any new cool stuff from Badger on the horizon? Anything for a SHOT Show release?
You know, cool subjective. You know, charging handles. I just said those are coming. If you think those are cool or not, I don't know. That's not exactly mind-blowing technology. But we got some risers that'll be the first of the year that we got coming out. People have seen those. We haven't necessarily hit them, but we haven't shown them around a ton either. We've had probably 3 different risers in the last 2 years that we've made. And we made them for different things for various reasons, and they're what they had to be for different stuff. And we're bringing that commercial, so that'll be around more for like EOTechs and what have you. We do have some cool stuff that like we're going down a different direction outside of our norm. We make mounts. That's our bread and butter. That's what people know us for.
Yeah.
You know, we made small AR parts and stuff like that, and I love mounts. I love making mounts. It's great. And I truly do think we're the best at doing it. You know, that's what we've done for over 30 years. You know, that's us. But we can make other stuff very well. You know, we got a talented team, and our shop is second to none. I mean, it's great. The facility up in South Dakota it's hammered on. The guys up there, they're great at their jobs. I mean, when I'm out there looking around, I'm like, holy crap, like we are not this coordinated in Kansas City. These guys know what's going on up here. Like it's great. You know, can't say enough about the Dale and Alan and Tim Farrell up there. They run that place tight. So we want to branch out and do something completely opposite of what we do, and it's just going to be a while. It's not going to be at SHOT. One thing we'll probably have at SHOT that will show that's kind of starting to go out of the vein is some pistol comps. So we'll have those at SHOT. Just starting off something, dipping our toes in. The Echelon came out, the Springfield. There's not a lot out there, if anything, out there for it. I think there might be like a mag release, but there's nothing else out there. They got a threaded barrel. There needs to be something on it. Yeah. So, you know, kind of some stuff in that vein. You know, that's what you might see from us in the future. So, but that SHOT, nothing crazy. You know, more C1 stuff and some of the stuff I've just talked about. But we'll get there, guys. For real this time. You know.
And to touch on an extension of that too, it's difficult to get the average consumer to understand that part of when a company is moving slow, sometimes it's just logistical errors or time passes, anything like that, normal stuff. Sometimes it is that we are trying to do our best to evaluate an opportunity or a series of opportunities, do the cost-benefit analysis, weigh the pros and cons. What is that machine time not going to if we are doing this project?
Yeah.
And the thing that Jordan is alluding to is something that is a very big swing. Mm-hmm. And it could be extremely radical, or it could not be. And that's our job, to have to actually weigh that out and see, is this worth pursuing? And I think that there are some of us that are really excited at the prospect. And then there's also that you are irresponsible if you don't temper that excitement, especially on the consumer side of like, oh shit, I'd spend money on that for sure. But then you also have to balance that out and be responsible, because if we take a big swing and we miss, and then that hurts the ability for us to fulfill other things on contracts for end users, or be able to produce mounts for people to buy. Those are all things that we weigh. And so when we talk about like, it's coming, there's time involved, there's a reason why, and we are trying to do our best and be as responsible as we can as a company to make those good decisions.
Yeah, and like, time management, our military side and our foreign side it's not slowing down right now. That's for sure. And so it's the stuff that people don't see. It's like, well, we can't just take this machine or this area or this part of the building and say, all right, let's turn this on, because like, no, we have to do this, and this is for the next 5 years. We have to do this. And I think these last couple of years has been a boon for a lot of folks. It really has. But like, I think everyone's had a tough time negotiating how much do you scale.
Oh yeah.
And scaling isn't just production, it's people. And you never want to be in a bind where you scale. If you have to scale back production of something, that's never fun. We never like that. We want those machines to run forever. Mm-hmm. But I don't think anyone ever wants to be in a position where you have to scale personnel.
Yeah.
And we don't. We just don't. Like, we're doesn't happen. We're not going to put ourselves or other folks in that bind, because we, the families that work with us, that's exactly that. We all know each other, and so you don't want to overstep too far, and then 24 months down the road, you're like, we got to make some tough decisions. And we just will never. That just won't happen. So it's tough to figure out how to introduce something that's very large. Like, well, how do we do this? This is bigger than what we've done currently. There's calculus for us because we're a small team, Mm-hmm. So, it's tough. But we're going to get there.
This is the other thing, too. Like, I remember we talked about this on the phone. I mean, COVID and that whole thing blew up the gun industry. And we had lots of conversations where you were like, we are trying not to grow beyond our means, because the one thing we don't want to do is grow too big and then have to fire people. Yeah. And I remember that conversation was something that was really important to hear, because that's a level of care that anybody hearing this that works in a completely different industry, doesn't do manufacturing, it's not their fault that they don't know these things or that these aren't top of mind. It's just not what they do every day. And so, like, these are not problems that are unique to us. Like, this is just endemic of doing business in general, right? Is doing cost-benefit analysis where you're weighing options. And ultimately, like, part of the reason why I came back to Badger is that Jordan and I had lots of long conversations just as people talking about, like, what is a good way to do business? What is a good way to do right by people and consumers? I know for me, like, when I came at this purely as a consumer, I only got so many dollars. And when I spend them talking about color with Ano and all that, now I'm not quite that picky, but at the same time, I'm not going to begrudge anyone for being picky about the money that they have to spend. And so, yeah, I mean, those are things that we do think about, not just during the 9 to 5 workday, but when we're having dinner and when we're cooking and like talking and breaking down our day and all that. Like, these are the things that weigh on us that we have to do right as best as we can. We will make mistakes. We have. But trying to continuously improve and just be a good company, not just a good producer and not just a good salesman, but like being good in the actual capital G way. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I don't know how many times we've had the conversation in 2021 and 2020 where I'm like, hey man, we need people. And you're like,
And
we don't need to fire people in 2024.
Yeah. And you guys work with so many manufacturers, and you're doing some of it yourself now. It's like the flash to bang isn't as quick as people think. Like, it is. Sometimes it can be very frustrating too. Like, I said, working with forges. Like, it's not like, all right, press the button, bam, go. Because I could do that. And then it's like, well, are all my forgings going to be bent when I get, like, oh, crap. Now we got 10,000 of these that have to be straightened out. Okay, well, now this thing just costs, like, it's a loss. So it's the flash to bang in manufacturing it's hard to be nimble and productive at the same time. You can be nimble and not have a lot of stuff out there. But if you got high demand, you're going to lose that ability to be nimble, or you're going to grow out of your britches. And we've seen that with other stuff before. And it's a tough balance, man. And none of us, I'll just dispel any myths right now. None of us are like super dialed on geniuses. Like there's some guesswork involved with some of this too. It's like, where do we think this is going to go?
Yeah.
You don't have like, you can have every analytic out there and be on every group and talk to every people. And there's like what do we think this industry is going to want in 18 months? And that's how far out you got to think, it's like, because the flash to bang from design, getting materials, making something, and then getting it out to folks like you. It doesn't happen in 8 weeks.
If we only knew about 12 o'clock mounts, right?
Yeah, exactly. We were just talking about that. It's like, if we only knew. I think when we first made them, we, at the time we were making, I don't want to get into too big of numbers, but we were making a lot of offset stuff. And we made what we thought was a okay number of the 12 o'clock stuff at first, and they were gone the first week.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh shit. Well,
missed that one.
Guess we should have quadrupled that up a little bit.
Yeah, whoops.
It's like, it's not like we have a big bunch of guys that like, give me, right now I want this. And then with Clear, we kind of did a little bit where people are like, oh, I want Clear. Well, we didn't make 10,000 of them, so you get them out there and they don't move as quick as you might think they would, because it's unique.
And it's hard on our end, like we look at stuff and we get it in, and when the 12 o'clock stuff start hitting, we might have got, there might have been 15 SKUs that came in that box, and some of those, they're 25 of one and 5 of another and 30 of another, and you're watching it and you don't realize those 5 evaporated in an hour and a half, because you're looking at a dozen other things that went away the same day, and then you're starting to look at it like, hold on a second, I got these here, they sold out in 12 hours. I got these again 6 weeks later, and they're gone in 4 hours. So by the time you catch up on that, and that's just one of the. How many SKUs does Badger have?
Oh my gosh, several hundred, over 300.
Oh wow.
There's over 50 SKUs just in the C1 line.
Yeah,
like easily over 50 SKUs. We're probably in a triple digit now, and I don't think people realize like how much we rolled out those mounts. Originally, there was, let's see, what came with that originally. It was just the mount in the offset J-arm at 170 at 45 degree with an aim point mount, a Delta Point Pro, and an RMR. And then it was already in development but not released commercially yet, was the modular ring cap system with the ability to have a laser rail, because that was a design aspect of it. And now there's like, as if you're a dealer and you're like, okay, I want to carry Badger's 12 o'clock stuff. Okay. 30, 34, 35, now 36. Aim point micro, aim point acro, RMR, Delta Point Pro, probably who knows how many by next year. Like
then you had color.
Thank
God it's only 2.
Yeah. Thank goodness. Tan and black, and it's like, how much money is that for a dealer to have to cover those SKUs? And then
even if you're just getting 5 or 4 or 10 of each, like it's a lot. It is. It adds up very fast.
And you got that dude from Texas that keeps on calling you about 509T stuff.
Oh yeah.
It's me.
Yeah.
509T.
509T.
Come on.
Yep. And so if we did every hollow sun out there, or what, there's, what aren't we making if we're making that is part of it too. But it's like, it's hard for a company to get behind that, and be like, all right, let me really support it. I'll take 100 of each. That's that just doesn't really happen for most
No.
folks,
Yeah.
you know. But if one sells out quick, well, it might have already, you know, we never make like 200 of something. That's our min. Like when we do something, that's our minimum quantity. But by the time you've ran through it and realized it's popular, we might be, all right, well, hey, it's back in the manufacturing schedule.
Yeah.
And those 100 SKUs, like we wanted the C1 to just be the answer for everything that you need. Like, hey, I'm a PRS shooter. I got a data board. I think that's cool. Cool, we got that. Because that sells the system. That's the whole point, is it can be a hub. But, man, with those SKUs that come with that, it can be overwhelming. And certainly for a customer, like, you're staring at some of the shit and you're like,
Yeah.
what does this do? Where does this go? So, yeah, you kind of got to do some research, I guess.
Yeah.
We haven't made it easy.
And
either.
even with all of the SKUs, all of the consideration, all the variability, still can't please everybody.
Nope.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
this was something that I saw on Instagram the other day. A guy had posted, and he'd called out that our 12 o'clock accessory ring cap system was too tall for LPVOs. And so when you start thinking back, go back to the origination of how did this get designed? Well, when we came out with the J-arm, there was just one. It was a 170 45 degree.
Yep.
Why did we do that? Well, 45 degree is just simplest and easiest. You got 90 degrees, float that in the middle, you got 45 degrees.
You throw that stock over when you're rolling over. A lot of stocks have like an angle on it. It's very easy to find, and it gets its shit out of the way of the windage knob, which is a big thing. You use them all, cool, it clears it. You use a mod light on that 45, cool, it clears it, and it's easy. You throw it over there, it gets the rest of the shit out of the way. You know, that's why we did that first. That's what it was for. You know,
And so when you start then looking at the rise of the LPVOs, you got much shorter turrets. Well, that 12 o'clock system was keeping in mind that there are like Mark V HDs that are out there that have tall turrets.
Yeah.
You got Night Force ATACers, tall turrets. And so they look at that and they're like, the gap between my window and the top of my turret, that's a big gap. I don't like that. It's not very, what's the word that you like, svelte?
yes.
Yeah.
Well,
And so we looked at that and it's like,
in our aim point one, our micro T, it's all one piece because the screws for an aim point micro have to come up from the bottom.
Yeah.
So you can't do like our modular cap like we do for the other stuff, because that goes on and then you can add to the top of it, which is cool because you don't lose the zero on your main optic. If you're like, hey, I want to have a laser rail on this and use the new Vortex Impact, cool, you can do that. And if you're like, hey, I'm going to go shoot this whatever comp and I don't need the impact rail, but I want to put a RMR on there, you can take it off, don't lose zero of your main optic, put it on there, good to go. Can't do that with the micro T. Screws come up from the bottom, so it's one piece. More expensive, harder to do. And we looked at it and it's like, all right, it's 30 and 34. We're going to make it really ideal for low power variable turrets. But, a Swaro, low power variable. You look at the elevation cap on that, that's about as minimal as it can get. It's very, very small. Versus, say, a short dot from Schmidt & Binder, taller. You can't have 5 different versions of that cap. You can't. We would never sell them. Like 2 guys would buy them. So, we made it. We found a good medium. We have dang near every scope under the sun. We put it all on. We make protos, and we say this is what we're going to go with. And you'll see something on like say a 1-6, and it's like 40 thou taller than the elevation cap. And it's like, this isn't. I wish it was shorter. And it's like, okay, well, we can't do it for everything. And then some of them, it's like, yeah, if you turn that elevation cap now, it's blocks your dial. So it's just an impossible task. And there's no free lunch in any of this stuff. If you're making modular stuff, there's just never going to be a free lunch. And we still try to support everything the best we can. And even those, we're making, we got new ones coming out for the Aimpoint Micro T that are taller for Leopold Mark. They're made specifically for the Leopold Mark V. We made some. And our modular one's got a little block, a riser block, if you want to use on certain scopes or taller. So it's just hard. It's just tough. Can't have 5 versions of everything. Thank God.
But it's a cool system.
It is. Yeah.
It's a very cool system, and we're going to be doing some content later on today, specifically on the C1 and the C1 universe. And did you see the giant C1?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Did you see?
Yeah. They bring that around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Y'all brought it. They brought it here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got it in the.
Yeah, heck yeah. I spent like 45 minutes packing that thing
Yeah.
up. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like we took a gamble because that thing's expensive.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, who do we trust more, UPS or TSA? And it's like, ooh,
Yeah. Ooh, that's
probably not
that's
TSA. We'll ship this thing. So
Well, we'll ship it back for you
There you
because it's pretty cool that you brought it, and we'll have it on there. Do you have any other questions that you've got picked out on?
So one more I wanted to ask was people are talking about QD,
mhm.
like for the C1 mounts.
Mhm.
Is that ever going to be a thing, or why not?
I won't necessarily say it won't be a thing, but what I will say is it won't be a thing unless we can do it as good as our standard way of doing it. I'm not gonna knock QD. I know there's people that like it and want it. I'm personally not one of them. I don't have I have wrenches. I don't have a big need for like, oh, it's more convenient. It's like, no, it's not really. Like you can pop it off easy enough with a wrench. As far as like blowing it off if something breaks, like that's not really a thing, and that's why we have like secondary sighting abilities on our C1. You can put a top or offset red dot. Or both. Yeah, you can
do
get
3
5 of
sides.
those on there
Yeah.
if you really wanted.
And a laser.
And a laser. Yeah, you've got secondary and tertiary sighting systems built into your guns. We've done a QD mount before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we have. Yep. It's never been seen, but we've done one. It worked a little bit differently. I actually think it's kind of cool, but and I specifically say QD, not quick attach, but quick detach. And it was, I would say, different than anything else I've seen out there. We did it, and we even talked about the C1 at one point in time design, like maybe we should do it this way. And I have a drawing somewhere of it and didn't do it. But just haven't found a way to make it quite as strong as what we have now. If it's something you can move with your fingers, it's my opinion, like it's not as good as what we have currently. So no, we're not looking at doing that anytime soon. And there are guys that are doing it well, by the way. Like ADM's got some stuff out there. There's tons of other guys that do the quick attach, and they're out there. I don't see a need for us right now unless we can really break through on something that we think's awesome to get in that battle space. So sorry, break any hearts if people really want a QD C1, but she ain't in the cards.
Yeah, it also kind of boils down to the design ethos and where all of this came from. With his background, zero retention is it's a non-negotiable, right? Yeah. And so that is the absolute baseline foundation for every single product that we design for optics. It has to retain zero. It has to be strong, right? That's where it starts from, right? Because if your optic can't maintain zero, what are you working with? And so that also then means that it's a much, much higher bar to be able to transition away from what works well.
Brandon Boyd.
Oh, he said what challenges?
What are the current problems that you are trying to solve?
I saw that question. I like how that was worded.
Yeah.
First and foremost, we make tools. That's what we do, and like that's been my philosophy behind all this. Like, and I'm not saying every now and again we don't make something that's like, cool shit. Like, let's just do it because it's neato. Camo dead levels. That doesn't solve a problem other than making shit look cooler. But
I'd buy one.
Yeah.
I will.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I will have one too. But I like his wording on that. And so we do work with a lot. I mean, I know this is old hat to say this, the end user, but I was an end user. That's some of the products that we've made early on. the bipod mounts that we did early on. I think that was my first product at Badger. That was something I was making. I made like a hacked up one like years ago, and it's been around. But you know, if it can make a job 10% easier or better, that we get interested in that. You know, it's like, okay, that's cool. So a lot of our stuff does derive from a military program or a military solution. Not always a program. It's sometimes it's a more plugging in like something rapidly. And a lot of stuff we do it comes from that. So I hinted earlier, like, you know, we're making a comp for pistol. I think there's some problems in that space that we want to start filling some gaps, you know. And if you look at us, we do modular products. That's what we like. So won't get too much into that, but I think there's some wheelhouse stuff for us in there, you know. So get ready for more SKUs. So anytime you hear modular, it's like, all right,
Yeah. Here come the SKUs.
here it comes. Yeah, we'll try to keep it to one color, maybe this time.
Yeah. And I mean, this is an important moment to say we love our consumers so much. We want them to have choices and options, even if it means we have to, you know, suffer on our end and just maintain a bajillion SKUs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Worth it, ultimately, because people
Absolutely.
can do it exactly how they want it.
I don't want that weird 36 millimeter guy not to be able to have a C1.
Yeah,
You know,
you
the
should look-
4 of you out there, I want to take care of you guys.
Yeah.
So
Aaron, that
Yeah.
we are getting the 35 millimeter top 12 o'clock mount for aim point.
For
The
T2.
for
Mm-hmm.
T2,
yeah,
T2, P2, everything. It's coming.
yeah. It looks
That's what-
wild
yeah.
too. It's weird looking. Like goosenecked. It's cool looking.
Nice.
Looks
Yeah.
good on there. That turret's a beast. When you look at that thing, it's tall. So when you hold that aim point micro 35 millimeter outside the turret, you're like, what is going on? This thing is huge, but it looks cool on there. So,
What else we got coming? That y'all just dropped aim point, the P2 mounts.
oh yeah,
the
Standalone
risers.
Yeah.
right down.
Those are
Right,
super
and those
cool.
are going to be in what height?
1.43, 1.70, and 1.93. We might have another height. We're kind of developing something right now. It depends if the user wants it or not when we really get down the road on it. So we might have one more. But 143, that's like if you take your front sight post on an AR, that is the exact middle of the travel of the front sight post. That's where we're like, all right, cool, that's absolute. And it really works good on sub guns, you know. That's kind of what we
Cool.
had in mind with it. I like the 170. It's a great height. But and that P2 is cool. I've been really liking it.
Yeah.
And that was another product that was kind of developed for someone using
Yep.
P2s. And they were like, all right, let's make this commercial. So
Yep, I think that's and we'll talk more about this offline. But I think that's one of our shortcomings is the education portion of the C1 series mount.
Mhm.
So on what you can do with them and the accessories and how all that
Yeah.
works, which is what we're going into later on today.
that's what our shortcoming is too, and that's why we got Christian here. That's part of what he's here to do is like, I can make the stuff and get it out there, and I can talk to certain customers and get it there, and it's like, here's all this shit, bah, you know, vomit it out. And it's like, sometimes I look at some of the stuff I made it, and I'm like, what in the fuck is this called again? And what parts is this? Oh yeah, that's right. This is how you do this. Yeah. There's a lot to it. Go try to put a bubble level together, and stare at that thing for a second. And you're like, where does what go? You know.
And I mean, it's kind of ironic, you know, we're all at Badger touched with the TISM in different ways, right? Jordan's comes from designing things, right? Mine comes from doing this, right? I do this very well. Most of the time too much. But the fun part is, especially, you know, talking about my background growing up, I grew up, and in Kansas City, public schools were not stellar. And so my parents took a huge financial hit early on. And
I
my
had
sister,
square dancing at my public school, if that gives you any idea.
you think I didn't? When I got to middle school, yeah, we square
Yeah.
danced. Not well. But I grew up going to a French charter school. So every single day it was French immersion. So my sister and I are bilingual in French.
Oh, nice.
And originally what I wanted to study in college was linguistics. I wanted to study languages because it was so cool to me growing up, knowing that somebody from a totally different part of the world I could talk to in a language and communicate. And so then I go to Africa. I go to Tanzania. I learn a little bit of Swahili, which is super funny. Me being pasty white boy from the Midwest, and then all of a sudden I'm speaking Kiswahili. But it's ultimately about communicating with people in a way that they can understand the message or the information that you're trying to give them. And so that's something that we're going to be working on and doing a lot more in 2024, is doing videos from the source, from us at Badger. Unfortunately, it's going to be my ugly mug doing the talking, but there's a ton of information, and people can't make as good of decisions if they don't have access to all of the information.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why we shouldn't be. If we are the subject matter experts in creating mounts and modular systems for those mounts, why are we not then being the ones to communicate all of this? Have a control on the information.
We've been making serialized scope rings for 30 plus years, so you get your front ring is the same as your rear ring, and then we split them and serialize them. And there's still a ton of people. They're like, is that a part number? I mean, I've talked to guys that I worked with back in the day. Like, hey, I have this one guy in specific that I can think of. He's like, I have a set of Badger rings. They're issued. They are the part number is 0001. What is that ring? I was like, you have the very first Marine Corps rings that we ever made. That's a serial number. He's like, oh, no kidding. That guy's cool dude too. And he has number 1 and he has number 0317, which is our
nice.
That was our MOS back when it still existed. Friggin' see you later, guys. That's gone. But
there's a lot of things that people don't know about us, like certain things relating to patents, like ambidextrous charging handle. A lot of people don't know that we make the C1 modular safety selector. It's got a 60 or 90 degree throw, and all it takes is flipping the barrel around. That you have modular heads and indicators, and people still don't know that we make that. And we make a full auto version, and it's really cool.
Yeah.
Being able to communicate that, like, hey, we have a lot of these SKUs. Well, each of those SKUs is actually a product, right? And so, like, there's a lot of things that we make and that we've been making for a long time. But it's just been, when all of your energy is put into making the products and solving the problems, then when you turn around and you look at it like, there's a marketing aspect to this that also has to have a high level of investment into it. And so that's something that we are definitely working on, and that I'll be happy to work on.
Sure.
C1 introduced us a whole bunch of new customers. We were the sniper guys for years. That's what people knew us as, like sniper equipment. And that's not the same anymore, So
Good job.
Yeah.
And we appreciate you coming down.
Yeah, we love being here.
And you got any other questions?
I do, but we don't have time today.
Okay. Well, if you've got any questions for these guys, drop them in the comments on this YouTube video or send them to us on Facebook. There's a Badger Ordnance Owners group, as well as the Big Tex Ordnance Friends group that you can drop them in, and both these guys are there. Some of them are under fake names, but they're there. Anyway, we appreciate you watching, listening, however you consume this podcast. Leave us a 5-star review. Subscribe to this podcast as well on your favorite podcasting app or on YouTube. And please feel free to share this podcast with your friends. Anything else?
What does Ian normally say?
I don't know.
Hug your grandmas?
Hug your relatives. Oh, and Merry Christmas.
Yeah, this will be the Christmas episode.
Oh, yeah.
Merry
By
Christmas.
the way, in honor of Ian being sick, I'm going to do an Ianism.
There we go.
Remember to always kiss the homies goodnight.
There you have it.
I hope Ian will appreciate
Yeah,
that.
he'll
sure he will.
That's a solid one.
Yeah.
That's a solid one. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
And to all a good night.
And